both my parents were Irish. My father was born in Canada of Irish parents, but they weren't from Ireland. They were just, I think, first generation Irish in Canada. He came down from Canada and crossed the border when he was like 17 years old. He worked in a logging camp, and he used to be a teamster. He'd drive the logs from the mountain down to the mill. And the last time he was there, in the wintertime in Canada, they wouldn't, the sled that he brought the logs down on, drawn by horses, was a sled. It didn't have any wheels. And the last time he did that, the sled went one way and the horses went another way. And he managed to avoid being killed and just got up and said, "That's it," and walked across the border, made his way down to Chicago, and that was about 1920 that he did that. I heard very little about his parents. He went back to his mother's funeral when I was about 15 or 16 up in Canada. I don't even know what town it was. He just went and came back very quickly. He didn't care to talk much about his family. So as far as the Irish go there, he used to refer, my mother's side of the family was much more Irish and more derived from the Irish experience. My father used to, let's get into my grandmother, was straight from County Cork in Ireland. She was a very strong woman. She had 6 kids. Her husband, she worked her way from Ireland to the United States in the late 1880s, and on a ship similar to what we saw in the Titanic. She was some type of a maid on the ship, and that's how she got to the United States. I'm not sure if her husband did that the same way, my grandfather, or if she met him here. Either way, he worked both as a motorman on the CTA, Chicago Transit Authority, around 1900, and he was supposedly the first one to drive when they built the new subway in Chicago around 1900. He was the first one who drove the train through the subway. That was his claim to fame. My grandmother was a very strong woman, and her and my father never got along, his mother-in-law, that type of situation. And she used to call, or he used to call them shanty Irish, including my mother, because he'd get into arguments with my mother, and the whole side of the family, my aunt and my uncle, were all shanty Irish as opposed to lace curtain Irish. The old joke was the lace curtain Irish used to take the dishes out of the sink before they pissed in it. But he would call them shanty Irish, that they didn't take the dishes out of the sink, I guess. My grandmother and my mother were the only ones in the whole family that I knew who didn't drink, and drink to excess. I mean, my brothers, my sister, even me when I was younger, I quit drinking close to 30 years ago. But they all drank very heavily. I was the last of my 4 kids, in my direct family, and I was considerably younger than the other ones. So I could see what alcohol was doing to all of them. That's why I quit when I was about 40 years old. But my mother tried drinking once when she was 19, said she didn't like it, never did it again. Same thing with cigarettes. My grandmother, I think, stopped drinking. She used to drink herself, but she stopped drinking, I think, just because she got older. She died when she was 86. I was 15 years old. And she always had the Irish brogue, and was a very personal, a very charming lady. Always had good things to say to people. Everybody loved her. She may have still been drinking, as far as I know, because they were all very affable. My uncles and my aunt were all very nice, very Irish. Drinking was part of the culture. Chicago itself is a city that has churches on one corner and bars on the other corner. There's all kinds of churches and bars everywhere in Chicago.
Growing up Irish Americans, we didn't really understand what that meant, why they, of all the Gaelic cultures that were out there, why were they always fighting with each other? As it turned out, many years later, we discovered the fact that they were never of the single ethnic group, but were all Gaelic. Many other questions remain unanswered until many years later, until we ask our own questions and along the pathway run into our answers. And why is it that we were here in the first place? Well, we came over in many different waves, but that doesn't make us unique, nor does it make us original. Look at the project left by the Vikings with the Norwegian forest cat leaving their progeny in the form of the Maine Coon cat. Many to learn from them, many to learn from the Native Americans. It's this term culture which needs to be nailed down.
My mother is African American. My father is half American Indian Cherokee. Half Irish. My grandfather on my father's side is from Ireland. I didn't come into the knowledge that I was part Irish till I was in my late teens when I actually met my father for the first time. And you know, he gave me some information about my grandfather, but not enough to really be of any substantive use in finding out what my heritage is on that side, because I really don't think he knew himself. But it did give me an interest in finding out where my grandfather was from, and it did inspire me to actually go to Ireland. And I actually went twice because I loved it so much the first time.
I came here in 1980 from San Diego. I'm a Navy brat, and my daddy's been on a ship for a long time, and we traveled around the world. We used to live in Virginia and Chicago and Japan for 2.5 years, and then we were stationed in San Diego, and then my daddy retired, and then he wanted to be an electrician. Daddy got a business going with my mommy, and I helped out and did what I could to get him started here in Hollister. When it was really nice town, small town, a lot of big orchards, They're gone now. It's still a little town. Gangs are starting to come in, but it's hopefully quiet most of the time. My mom always teased me about being a social butterfly, that I just went to school to be a social butterfly. Don Melinda, you just go to school to be a social butterfly, she would tell me. She was right. And my son, he went to Chico, and he doesn't even party, but it's a really good school. Really super pretty over there, super pretty. I would recommend it to anybody. And even if you don't party, because it's really pretty over there. Very, very nice atmosphere. You can do a lot of things. Mommy and Daddy didn't really emphasize too much on education. My brother, he was married at 16, so I think he got his GED. Dad trained him to be an electrician, so. In fact, he got his own business now going on, and he's doing okay. Economics are hard right now, but he's trying, and that's a good thing, because he used to be really bad on drugs and stuff and didn't care about anything. And so I'm glad to have my brother back, my real brother.
I'm a 4th generation Irish American. My family's from San Francisco.
When the lights go down in the city and the sun shines on the bay.
We've been here for 3 generations now, so over 100 years. Originally, we came from south of Ireland, from Mayo. And we came over here early 1900s. And my family lived in New York for a while. Then they moved to San Francisco in the early 1900s. We've got tons of Irish cousins and family in San Francisco. My great-grandfather was an Irish beat cop in San Francisco. And he used to hang out at the Buena Vista, which is this little cafe. And I just took my nephew over there, and I guess he's 4th generation San Francisco, which is kind of cool. You know, 4 generations going to the same cafe. But my parents, they both went to USF, and they're both Catholics, brought up Catholics, went to Catholic school. They actually grew up around the Haight district, around the 60s. And most people that grew up in the Haight district around the 60s, they turned out to be like hippies, you know, but my parents were pretty strict Irish Americans. So they graduated from USF, and my dad became a lawyer. And my mom, she got into the telephone business and did very well for herself. But for me, I took a different route. I was more interested in music and the arts. So I went to JC for like 6 to 8 years, you know, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Finally ended up at Expression in Emeryville and got my BA in sound arts. And now I record music and produce music, and you know, it's a tough living, and you don't make good money. And my parents would love for me to go back to school and get a real job, you know, but I love what I do.
These sons and daughters are scattered throughout the world, and they give this small island a family of millions upon millions who are scattered all over the globe, who have been among the best and most loyal citizens of the countries that they have gone to.
There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some are gone and some remain. All these places had their meanings. With lovers and friends I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life I've loved them all. But of all these friends